Welcome to The Explainer. We are absolutely surrounded by facts, figures, and headlines every single day. But how do we know what's real? Today, we're going to crack open the process and see how knowledge actually gets built. Let's get investigating.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? When you see some wild statistic or a big news story, do you ever just stop and think, wait a minute, where did that actually come from? How did we get from just being curious about something to actually knowing it's true?
Well, the best way to think about it is to picture yourself as an investigator. And like any good detective, before you can even start to solve the case, you've got to build your toolkit. You need to know which tools to grab and, just as importantly, when to use them.
Okay, so your first big decision as an investigator is all about your source of evidence. It really boils down to this. Are you going to go out and collect brand new clues yourself, or are you going to analyze the clues that other people have already left behind?
And that one choice sends you down one of two main paths. The first path is collecting info firsthand, which we call primary data. The second is working with information that's already out there, which, you guessed it, is called secondary data.
So, primary data is the evidence you gather with your own two hands for your specific investigation. This is you, literally on the ground, conducting interviews, sending out questionnaires, or making direct observations. You are the original source.
Now, there's a classic trade-off here. The huge advantage of primary data is control. I mean, you have complete control. You design it, you collect it, you know exactly where it came from. The downside? Well, all that control is going to cost you. Gathering original data can be incredibly time-consuming and, frankly, pretty expensive.
The other path you can take is using secondary data. This is all the evidence that someone else has already done the hard work of gathering. We're talking about government reports, historical documents, scientific studies, even things like personal letters or diaries.
The real power of secondary data is efficiency. It can save you a ton of time and money. But, and this is a big but, you have to be extra careful. This data wasn't collected to answer your specific question, so you always have to ask, okay, why was this collected in the first place, and what biases might be baked right into it?
You know, one of the most common and powerful types of secondary data is official statistics. Think about data on crime rates or employment numbers. Because governments collect this information in a really consistent way year after year, it can be super reliable for spotting long-term trends.
All right, you've picked your source. That's tool number one. Now for the second choice, and this one is all about the form your evidence is going to take. And it really just comes down to this. Are you looking for numbers or are you looking for stories?
So this choice splits our evidence into two main types. On one side, you've got quantitative data. This is all about the numbers. It answers the what. And on the other side, you have qualitative data, which is all about exploring the stories and the meaning behind the numbers. It gets you to the why.
Quantitative data is pretty straightforward. It's any information you can express with a number. Its job is to capture the who, what, when, and where of something in a way that you can actually measure, count, and compare.
So for example, a piece of quantitative data could just be a percentage. A statement like around 80% of Indians follow the Hindu religion gives us a really clear, measurable snapshot. It's a hard fact.
And the strength of numbers is that they're clear and easy to compare. But here's the limitation. They can also be kind of superficial. That 80% number tells us what people identify as, but it tells us absolutely nothing about why they do or what their beliefs really mean to them in their daily lives.
And this kind of data is what allows investigators to hunt for correlations. A correlation is just a statistical relationship that hints that two different things might be connected. You know, like, does ice cream consumption go up when the temperature rises? Quantitative data helps us spot those patterns.
And ultimately, investigators use all these numbers to test a hypothesis. You can just think of a hypothesis as the detective's main hunch. It's the big idea you put out there, and then you use the cold, hard data to see if your hunch was right or wrong.
So let's switch gears to that other tool, qualitative data. This isn't about counting things at all. It's about understanding them. The whole point is to capture the quality of human experience by exploring feelings, motivations, all the complex reasons we do what we do.
The focus here totally shifts. Instead of asking how many, the investigator starts asking why. The whole mission is to get the full story, to try and understand the world from someone else's point of view.
The power of this approach is its depth. You get these incredibly rich, authentic insights into why people behave the way they do. The trade-off? Well, these studies usually involve pretty small groups, so it can be really tough to say if their experiences are true for everybody else.
So we have these two big choices, primary versus secondary, and quantitative versus qualitative. But maybe the most important lesson for any investigator is that these aren't opposing ideas. They're all just complementary tools in one complete toolkit.
And here's how all these pieces can fit together. You can collect your own numbers by running a survey. You can gather your own stories by leading an interview. Or you can analyze numbers that already exist, like crime stats. And you can explore stories that already exist, like reading old letters. Each one of these gives you a totally different angle on the case.
And this really brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. The best, most convincing investigations almost never rely on just one tool from the kit. They combine them. They use the numbers to see the big picture, and then they use the stories to understand the human details behind that picture.
And that's really the whole point. Now you have the investigator's toolkit. So the next time you see a statistic or a study or some story in the news, you can ask those critical questions. Where did this evidence come from? Is it giving me the numbers or the story? And what part of the picture might I be missing?